Julian Quiñones takes one touch, cuts inside, and rifles the ball into the top corner. 22 minutes on the clock, Mexico City erupts, and within seconds, millions of Ecuador fans are pulling up the replay asking the same question. How was that not offside? He looks like he's a full 5 yards past the last defender when the ball reaches him. No flag, no VAR check, just a goal that stood and a fan base left furious. This is one of the biggest offside storylines to come out of the 2026 World Cup so far, and it's forcing a lot of viewers to rethink what they actually understand about the rule. Was Ecuador robbed in broad daylight, or is there something happening here that most casual fans have never had explained to them properly? Because on the surface, this looks like a disaster for FIFA's new officiating system. But once you slow it down and look at the actual mechanics of the offside law, the story gets a lot more complicated. So what's really happening here? Let's set the scene first. This was a round of 32 knockout match, Mexico hosting Ecuador at Mexico City Stadium on June 30th. The winner moves on to the round of 16. The loser goes home. That's the pressure both teams were playing under, and it's exactly why every single decision in a match like this gets put under a microscope. Mexico struck first through Quiñones in the 22nd minute. A sharp finish after a quick transition move caught Ecuador's back line moving the wrong way. 9 minutes later, Raúl Jiménez doubled the lead, capitalizing on a defensive mistake before combining with Quiñones again to slot home the second. By halftime, Mexico had what looked like an unassailable cushion, and Ecuador never really found an answer in the second half. The match got even messier late on, with Ecuador's Piero Incapié sent off in injury time after a heated confrontation. For Ecuador, it's a brutal way to see their first trip past the group stage in 2 decades come to an end. For Mexico, it's a ticket through to the next round, where they'll face either England or DR Congo. But none of that is what fans are talking about today. It's that first goal and the offside question that came with it. Here's where things get interesting. When people watched the replay of Quiñones scoring, what they saw was a striker standing well beyond Ecuador's last defender at the moment he actually struck the ball. Visually, instinctively, that screams offside. That's how most fans have been trained to watch the game for years. If the attacker is ahead of the defender when the ball hits his foot, something feels wrong. But that instinct is actually based on a misunderstanding of how the rule works, and this is exactly the kind of moment that trips up casual viewers every single tournament. Offside isn't judged at the moment a player receives the ball. It's judged at the moment a teammate plays the ball forward. Those are 2 completely different points in time, and in a fast transition like this one, that gap matters enormously. Reports and match analysis since the game have pointed out that when the pass was actually played to Quiñones, he was still in his own half of the pitch, behind the ball, onside by definition. From there, he simply outran Ecuador's defenders into the space they'd left behind. By the time he touched the ball and finished, he'd covered a huge amount of ground, which is exactly why it looked so extreme on screen. But the legality of the goal was locked in the second that pass left his teammate's foot, not 9 or 10 seconds later when he buried it in the net. If you're new to this channel, this is exactly the kind of World Cup story we break down every single day of this tournament. So take a second and hit subscribe now, because there's a lot more of this coming. But that's only part of the story, and it's worth understanding why the rule works this way in the first place. This loophole, if you want to call it that, exists on purpose. It's designed to stop defenses from playing an artificially high line and trapping attackers offside every time a long ball gets played. If a striker starts a move deep in his own half, completely onside, and simply outpaces the back line in open space, that's not a defensive failure caused by bad officiating. That's a defense getting beaten by pace and timing, which is supposed to be part of the game. FIFA's semi-automated offside technology at this tournament exists specifically to nail down that exact moment the ball is played, using tracking data and limb positioning far more precisely than the human eye ever could. This matters because the whole point of the system introduced for 2026 was to remove exactly this kind of confusion, freeze-framing the split second a pass leaves a player's boot and checking every attacker's position against it instantly. The bigger issue is that this tournament has already had a rocky relationship with trust in its offside technology. Earlier in the group stage, fans were left frustrated when the semi-automated system reportedly had an outage during a different high-profile match, forcing officials to fall back on manual review. Incidents like that leave a mark, and once fans start doubting whether the technology is working properly, every close call afterward gets viewed through a lens of suspicion, even when the process behind it was completely sound. That's really the environment this Quiñones goal landed in. It wasn't just one confusing offside call in isolation, it was another data point in a tournament where people are already primed to question what they're seeing on screen, whether or not that skepticism is actually justified in this specific case. Compare that to previous World Cups, where offside decisions were made almost entirely by a linesman's eye, with no freeze frame, no tracking lines, no second look unless a controversy erupted afterward. Mistakes happened constantly, and fans mostly just accepted them as part of the sport. Now, with technology capable of settling these calls to the centimeter, the expectation has completely shifted. Fans expect certainty, and when a decision still feels wrong to the naked eye, even after the technology has confirmed it, that gap between perception and reality becomes the story itself, sometimes even bigger than the match result. Would this affect your excitement for the rest of the tournament if you were an Ecuador fan? It's worth thinking about because for the players on that pitch, decisions like this one carry real weight. Ecuador's squad under Sebastian Becasise had already produced one of the standout underdog runs of this World Cup earlier in the tournament, and this round of 32 exit ends that story on a sour note, made worse by the sense that officiating cost them a fair shot. Hincapie's late red card only added to the frustration boiling over on the pitch in those final minutes. On the other side, Mexico's home crowd got exactly the moment they wanted, a co-host nation advancing on a goal that will now be remembered as much for the debate around it as for the finish itself. That's the strange reality of tournament football in the technology era. The emotional experience of watching your team score or concede hasn't slowed down at all, even though the process behind confirming that goal has become incredibly precise. This is also a good moment to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're covering every single controversial call from this World Cup as it happens, and you don't want to miss the next one. So where does this leave things heading into the knockout rounds? Best case for FIFA, moments like this one actually end up being a teaching opportunity. The more fans understand that offside is about the moment of the pass rather than the moment of the finish, the less these plays will feel like robbery, and the more they'll feel like smart, well-timed attacking football. Worst case, if the semi-automated system has another visible hiccup in a marquee knockout match, the doubt that's already simmering could boil over into a much bigger credibility problem for FIFA heading into the business end of the tournament. Expect governing bodies and broadcasters to keep leaning on this explainer angle for as long as it keeps generating this much conversation, because clearly a huge number of fans still don't fully grasp how the rule is applied in real time. Don't be surprised if FIFA or the broadcast partners push out more graphics and freeze-frame breakdowns like the ones circulating after this match, specifically to try to close that understanding gap before it happens again in a bigger game. So here's where we land. Quiñones wasn't offside because at the moment the pass was played, he was still onside in his own half, and everything after that was just a foot race he won. Ecuador didn't get robbed by a broken system, they got beaten by a well-timed run and a defensive line that got caught out. But the fact that so many fans still walked away convinced they'd witnessed an injustice tells you everything about where trust in officiating currently sits at this tournament. Do you think FIFA needs to do a better job explaining these calls in real time during broadcasts, or is this just part of learning to watch the modern game? Let us know which side of this debate you're on, and if you think Ecuador still deserved a different result.